You're listening to episode 813 of the Father Bill's podcast. Welcome back. This week's episode is entitled The End Time, given on the 33rd Sunday in Ordinary Time, 2021. Last Tuesday, I was driving to church in the morning and had to make a right turn off of A Street up to 10th Street to come here to the church. As I was turning, I spied in front of me, coming down 10th Street, a pickup truck traveling at a very fast speed. And before I actually completed my turn, the pickup truck was there in the intersection, making a turn right the other way to A Street, but not quite making the turn fully. So he basically took the entire lane of the other side as, I don't know, maybe going 20. Is it possible to go 30 miles an hour on a turn? I have no idea, but it was scary. Now, normally as I drive, someone does something strange, or there's like somebody speeding heavily, like on the freeway or somewhere else, I will think, well, gosh, I hope the pregnant lady in that car gets to the hospital soon. But in this case, it seemed to me just something's wrong. And as my heart's kind of pounding, because that was pretty scary, slowly a police car comes behind. Not at the same rate, but coming behind. I pull over, and I roll down my window, and I point to the direction. So there he goes. Go get that person. I don't know what's going on. Well, as I'm sitting there, I didn't go immediately back onto the road. I just stayed on the side, just thinking, as my heart's pounding, like, that could have been very bad. If I was going the other direction from A Street instead of the one I was doing, they would have hit me, and that could have been it. And I'm not a police officer, so I don't know what kind of impacts would have happened, etc. But I was thinking that could have been my day, and that could have been the last day. And I didn't wake up with that idea. I just do my thing and think I'm going gingerly to the work, etc. But that kind of changed my perspective for that day. As I'm thinking about my own worries, I'm like, those don't matter right now. This is something that just kind of rose to the top. I'm like, whoa. I'm thinking, well, I wish I could have this greater sensibility of a bigger vision of things more often, though I don't want them to happen necessarily because, I had a near-death experience. So I'm curious, just, you don't have to answer this, just to yourself. Have you ever had an experience where you were driving and you just escaped a deadly accident that you could have been part of? And if the answer silently is yes, then you know the feeling. So it is with many traumas in our lives. We wish they would never come upon ourselves or anybody, yet they happen. Maybe it's a difficult medical diagnosis or an injury which leaves our ability to move diminished, or a diagnosis of a terminal illness. Maybe an interaction with someone who threatens violence upon us. This last Thursday, we celebrated Veterans Day, and I'm sure if you talk to a veteran who was deployed into a military zone, they can tell you many harrowing stories and experiences where they could have been killed. And so we turn our hearts when we pray on Veterans Day to those individuals because they have a special place where they struggle. Turning to the gospel, several of Jesus' apostles, particularly Peter, James, John, and Andrew, put to him a question about the prediction that Jesus had just previously made. You don't hear that in the text. You have to go back a couple of verses where Jesus predicts the destruction of the temple. And the way he speaks is something that would be familiar for the time. It's called apocalyptic. He answers the question, but he also speaks more in a way that is not understood by everyone. The word apocalyptic means to uncover or to reveal. And it makes some fantastic and symbolic imagery when written or spoken. And if we don't understand the symbology, we can get it quite wrong. So this genre allows people then to speak and write in a way that could be hidden to some, yet revealed to others. And in this particular time of Jesus, you have an occupation by Rome. And the Romans wouldn't be so familiar to quickly deduce or to be able to read the apocalyptic genre or symbolism, but it wasn't lost on the Jewish people. Also, and because we know that because in the book of Daniel makes good use of apocalyptic as a genre. And again, it used fantastic images, which make it, again, fantastic and almost scary. But keep in mind that the point is not to scare someone. So this is also important to note. Remember, Jesus talked about the destruction of the temple. The temple was everything to the Jews. It was the center of their culture, their faith, and their identity. And it is where God dwelt. Now, in Jesus' response, he talked about the end times that would surround the razing of the temple and the persecutions that would follow. The people would understand this is going on now. And they would get that. The Romans may not get that if they were to pick up a writing if something was written that way. But in speaking as he did, he was communicating to his apostles not to worry about these proximate events, but to remain faithful and committed, for he would come back to rescue them. Now, the apostolic church took Jesus very seriously, and they felt he was coming in their lifetime. But as we know, time goes on, and they call this the delay of the parousia. So this is something you can kind of throw into a tea party if you have one. The delay of the parousia. Thanksgiving's coming up. Throw that one in there. See how it goes. But again, the idea of the parousia, the end times. So Jesus was expected in their lifetime to come back. Now, as time goes on, as the church continued to grow, their understanding of Jesus' words continued to be filled out. Clearly, he was trying to offer them hope and consolation for the times yet to come, but the times yet to come have now lasted 2,000 years. So some people will misinterpret, the end times, and they're looking out into the future. Remember 2012, that was kind of the latest hoo-ha about that, right? Yeah. Today, we look and we say, well, actually the end times were ushered in when Jesus came. We've been in the end times for 2,000 years. And there's been plenty of calamities, and there continue to be as we go forward. So again, the question then, and the challenge that Jesus offers us, is not to be struck with fear, not to be paralyzed, but remember that he's speaking in an apocalyptic genre in this moment. And it's not intended to be a scientific description of the end of the world, like a play-by-play about the future, but rather symbolic images to transmit truths about how we are to be amidst tribulation and trial, and to know that Christ will certainly return, though that time is unknown to everyone except the Father. And just to make it really clear, this text that we just heard, Jesus summed it up in one sentence. It's in Mark 13, verse 31, where we hear, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." Let me read this again. "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away." So the church brings these texts to us here liturgically in this part of the year to help to serve as a warning as well as give hope. We don't know when our time will be. And imagine just, my little situation in the road, that was rather scary. It can be very scary for all of us when there is a terminal illness in front of us, or something like an accident debilitates us or causes us harm. But however the end may happen for each of us, because it could happen in the grandiose moment where we're all here, but it also can happen in the individual moment of our death before the second coming, that Christ may come to us individually upon our death. And then that means that we need to expand our sense of perspective. We need to stay, as Scripture tells us, sober and alert, ready for whenever that last moment comes. And it is dangerous to our soul to think, it's not coming, not today, I mean, I could have said that just on Tuesday. Well, you told me that I almost got in a car accident that could have killed me. I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm just going to church. It's Grants Pass, it's A Street, it's 10th Street. What's the big deal? Well, we don't know, right? So an important way to maintain the correct perspective is to be careful about making this world our goal. This world, despite all its amazing things, cannot fully satisfy. And when we give it to the world this sense that it should, we are in deep trouble. Keeping our ultimate goal here on earth is a bad choice because we are making an idol out of this world. For it is not our final destination. For we are created by God, for God, and we're called to return to God. But he won't force it on us. Our choice to surrender to him, to let him take over our lives, is part of the equation of free will. He wants us to be with him, but he wants us to join him out of freedom and a desire to do so, something built in us. Not like, well, I gotta go with Jesus. What else can I do? But rather, I want to be with him. I yearn for him. And the question that we should be asking is that us? Do we actually yearn for God in this way? So let us not pretend that we will never die. Probably as we get older, that by nature kind of goes away, right? Or have any sense that we're not going to get sick. There's not going to be any tragedies in our life. Instead, we know they will happen. All of those things will happen to us. But will we get bitter and reject God for those things? I hope that we will thank him for showing us up when those things happen and be grateful for the chance to be even in this life and to have hope for a greater one beyond this world. Will we depend on God for our happiness, or will we look to the things of this world for our total satisfaction? One is truth and one is a counterfeit. And I tell you, there is no greater happiness than to give one's life over to Christ and to let him take over. No peril, no sword, no illness, not even death can overcome his love for us, for each of you, for me and you. If you do not have such a relationship, there's no better time than to start today, to ask him into your life, whether it be here at Mass or before you receive communion or in your car privately when you go home, because he wants to be with you. He will not force himself. Remember, we don't know when that day will be. And it is supposed to be one of glory, as we heard in the scriptures. Will we continue to work on our relationship with Jesus, letting him into our hearts each day, giving him the glory throughout our days, asking for forgiveness and submitting ourselves to him in humility, receiving his divine presence in the Eucharist each week, submitting our will to his. And when we do, if we do this, we will have little worry. There will be little fear. For we shall shine brightly like the splendor of the firmament. And like those who will lead the many to justice, we will be like the stars forever. We heard that in the scriptures today. So when your final day comes and mine comes, despite and even through the trials and tribulations we may have, I pray for myself and for you. And I think we'd all want to hear these words upon meeting Jesus. Well done, good and faithful servant. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Father Bill's podcast. If you have any questions or comments, just go to my website, fatherbill.org, and there you can email me. You can go to my Facebook page. You can see what's going on Twitter as well. And I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. And in the meantime, may God bless you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.